Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering Blackened Sponge and Mermaid Man vs. SpongeBob. These are two episodes that aren't talked about very much in my experience, which is kind of surprising for the latter at least, since it is a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episode after all. There isn't too much else to say about these two episodes in this introductory portion, since everything else is better left to their proper reviews, so I suppose that I'll just move on to the part where I thank everyone who is watching today and who interacts with my videos in any capacity, and with that, let's just get right into it. Starting off today's review is Blackened Sponge. Just like the other episode with black in its name, Blackjack, this episode is super underrated. Listen, I need everyone to get on my agenda now that this episode needs to be talked about more immediately. Yes, I'm saying now that I like this episode. It's important that y'all know that because I need more people to like this one. This episode more subtly toes the child-adult SpongeBob line, I'd say, because SpongeBob is acting like a child, but not the most obvious childlike behavior. But, like, he's trying to seem tough and cool and is lying through his teeth to do that using a fantastical story, just like a child would. But, of course, he's doing all of this at work, so adult. Y'all know I love when the line is played with like this. It's just so fun, and it demonstrates the unique side of this show. Getting into the episode now, Blackened Sponge starts out decently. The dream is fine. I don't have all that much to say about it. It's not super funny, but it's also not trying to be, for the most part, and SpongeBob's dream design is weird. I did think the whole is not, is to part was funnier than it had any right to be, so I'll be giving that credit where it's due. And then when SpongeBob gets up, I'm sure that somewhere out there someone is complaining about how stilted and slow and methodical the morning routine is, with SpongeBob trying to get the toothpaste lid off, then walking back to his room and getting a wrench. But I kind of like it. We're beginning to enter into the era of the show where these kind of dragged out, repetitive kind of scenes are used in a comedic fashion, and there are times where that works, and there are times where that does not, and in this case it indeed works. Here it functions as a good build-up for what we're about to see, which is SpongeBob getting a black eye because of the combined efforts of a toothpaste cap and a wrench, which is inherently funny to me. Not everything has to be go 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 all the time, and sometimes I worry that I give off that impression during these reviews. Sure, I like an episode with non-stop gags and an abundance of energy, but I can appreciate a slow build too. As for the somewhat eponymous black eye itself, it is definitely uncomfortable to look at, but the characters in this episode react appropriately to it, which helps a lot. And hey, that's how black eyes look in real life too. They're very off-putting when you see one unexpectedly. I've never gotten a black eye, and I have absolutely no plans to, because that just sounds painful as hell, and the bruising alone sounds horrible, but especially the thought of eye pain like that, no. Anyway, I'm not a fan of SpongeBob crying over his black eye, since that was doing just a bit too much and it was kind of grating, but at least SpongeBob recognizes that his situation is embarrassing and this is why he starts lying. I love how defensive Patrick gets over SpongeBob too. That was sweet, and I love little moments showcasing their friendship like this. Again, Patrick being a supportive friend is 1,000 times better than any other interpretation. I'll save my full discussion in that regard for an episode that's about the friendship between these two, but I had to get that thought out there. I'm sure y'all can understand. Once SpongeBob starts embellishing his story, it's really fun to see how far he keeps stretching it, adding wilder details with each retelling. A fun thing to do when watching this episode is compare SpongeBob's first retelling with his last, before the truth comes out that is. And also, the retold stories are really fun to listen to, especially as they grow in absurdity. Because these new details are added, hearing the same story repeatedly is not boring or tiresome, it's funny. And I love how SpongeBob gets increasingly convinced of his badassery, buying into his own hype as he continues to lie. Oh god, just saying that phrase reminded me of that one moment from Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Ooh, that's a throwback. Anyway, I like how he starts giving the story unprompted, like all Sandy did was offer some remedies for the black eye and now SpongeBob's getting into the story. The way SpongeBob walks into the Krusty Krab strutting his stuff is hilarious, and it's here that I'm reminded of as seen on TV, except I low-key think that this episode does this cocky SpongeBob shtick better. Is that an unpopular opinion? At this point, pitchforks are permanently in my vicinity. I just think that SpongeBob's conceitedness makes more sense here, and is far more endearing to me than, as seen on TV. I love how he gets on the intercom and starts talking his shit. That was too funny. Especially with Tom Kenny's delivery on, "I'm talking to you, Grandma!" SpongeBob talking like he's swallowed a thesaurus is great, and I love all the interruptions to his story. It's just so funny, and the fact that no one really even seems to buy into SpongeBob's bullshit except for Patrick just makes the whole thing even funnier to me, because the only person SpongeBob is fooling is himself. We then of course have the moment where Jack M. Crazyfish himself shows up at the Krusty Krab. The way SpongeBob says, "He's real," has always stood out in my mind, and Tom Kenny gets a 100 out of 10 on that delivery. Also, a fun little educational moment with Pugs, but this episode kind of touches on something in real life, which is that all of the people and faces you see in your dreams are real, because your brain can't make up real faces. Yes, even when the people in your dreams are unfamiliar to you, it could just be facial information stored by your brain from someone you passed on the street or something. Isn't that cool? That means that Jack M. Crazyfish being real isn't actually that wild, because SpongeBob perhaps saw Mr. Crazyfish somewhere before, and his brain replicated his look in SpongeBob's dreams, even though SpongeBob wasn't consciously aware of the guy's existence. Alright, I'll go back to the review now. So, I love how SpongeBob immediately shits his pants when Jack M. Crazyfish shows up, and he confesses to everything in a very entertaining way through recreating the accident. And then I love how the guy ends up being very similar to his dream self, cheating at rock, paper, scissors, which ends the episode nicely. Blackened Sponge is just a hilarious episode that only has a couple of minor issues here and there, including some very uncomfortable shots of the black eye, and SpongeBob's crying being rather grating. Other than those, I've got no issues with this episode, and I think it's super underrated. Or at least it lacks recognition. Maybe that's the phrase I'm looking for. Either way, this episode is landing in my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9.1 out of 10. Up next is Mermaid Man vs. SpongeBob, which is an episode that I've always thought was pretty fun, but just like its sister, this episode is rather forgotten. On the forum, the discussion page for this episode has very few comments. How sad. I guess I'll just have to talk this episode up and spread the love. Or not love. I make no promises on my opinion for the episode. I love how the first portion of this episode is such a shameless, obvious product placement. Even Man Ray is a part of it. The parody of that shit restaurant that shall not be named because we are boycotting forever over here is quite clear. It's kind of weird to see the Krusty Krab as such a commercialized place in this episode. Like, even though the restaurant is of course a commercial thing, it always had that family-owned feel to it, you know? But with a deal like this one, it feels much more like a fast food chain rather than a local place. I'm only pointing this out because I'm noticing it, not because I feel any type of way about it. Anyway, another thing I like is Plankton referring to Squidward by name in this episode, which is a major step up from Plankton calling Squidward the tall one in Bucket Sweet Bucket, in terms of getting some character interactions. Yeah, these two characters still don't really interact in this episode, but I'll take all the crumbs that I can get. Also, Squidward's appearance in this first part of the episode, or even just in this episode as a whole, is hilarious. The poor guy is mauled by a group of ravenous children, and I loved that. I think it's cool that SpongeBob was the one to put together this whole partnership as well, and I feel like that connects nicely with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 6. When Plankton beats up the box with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy figures, both he and I get an idea for a scheme, except mine is much better than his. Like, yeah, he comes up with the admittedly entertaining scheme of brainwashing the two heroes, but listen, I come up with the idea of having Karen simply buy one of the damn Krabby Patties. Like, why was there not a patty in the box? Maybe Mr. Krabs was smart enough to give her, or to not give her a patty, at least. Well, anyway, the way Plankton gets Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy under his control is entertaining enough, because the idea of mind control shampoo is pretty smart, and I love how we get the reveal of what it is too. Also, is Plankton in this part a parody of Dr. Bronner's? Because I swear by that shit. As soap. Let me make that clear. Never shampoo or conditioner. Hell no. I like how evil Plankton's plan is in this episode because it works well with the comic book feel of the episode. And speaking of a comic book feel, I love how when SpongeBob gets his butt handed to him by Mermaid Man, all he can do is talk about how he's using moves from old episodes of their show. He's a true fan. Also, just like in comic books, because they do love this plot point, no one can tell when Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy are being so obviously mind-controlled. Let's be real, people in comic books are quite slow on the uptake, if they're on the uptake at all, if you catch my drift. Anyway, the whole part where Plankton tries to get Mermaid Man to say Krabby Patties are bad is fine. It's trying to be funny and it gets a couple chuckles out of me, but it kinda lasts a bit too long, so that was a bit of a low point. Thankfully, once that ends, we get a fun sequence between SpongeBob and Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. And okay, let me go on this slight tangent for a second, but when SpongeBob said that he's not just an ordinary fry cook, my mind immediately went to that Team 4-Star Dragon Ball Z Abridged series and their running joke of, "You're not dealing with the average Saiyan anymore." It's kind of funny that I've thought of two different Dragon Ball Z Abridged references now. Moving on, the fight scene between SpongeBob and Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy is fun and enjoyable to watch, and I love how Plankton's like, "I never thought I'd get this far." I'm choosing to see that as an Imitation Crabs reference. And then I love how SpongeBob just busts in there with a truck full of fiber. This whole episode feels like a product placement for something that doesn't exist. Because it kinda is, that's the point. And then of course we've got Plankton realizing that he's been foiled yet again. Maybe next time, Plankton, maybe next time. Mermaid Man vs. SpongeBob is a pretty enjoyable episode. It's got funny moments, but the episode in general is not entirely funny. I'd also say that this episode is kinda meh on its execution of what the title promises us. Like, the fight scene could have been more, and this is because of the pacing. We didn't even get the actual Mermaid Man versus SpongeBob until like 8 minutes in, and we didn't get Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy being mind-controlled until like 6 minutes in, so perhaps that could have been handled better. In the end, though, this episode still fits nicely in my good tier, where it comes in with a score of 7.6 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this video with some closing thoughts of mine. It can be weird sometimes having two sister episodes that are both kind of forgotten. It makes me wonder if perhaps this block was not rerun very much or something. I mean, there's certainly other explanations, but I do wonder if that was a part of it. I also think it's funny that, even though I call it one, Mermaid Man vs. SpongeBob doesn't feel entirely like a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episode, but it doesn't feel entirely unlike one either. It's just a middle ground, I guess. I can't really point to why, because the two heroes are in the episode for its entirety, so it's not like Nightlight, where they don't show up till much later. And the episode still has all of those comic book feels that are characteristic of a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episode, so I really don't know. As for Blackened Sponge, the only thing I can really say about that episode is that it's hella underrated and funny as hell. I should rewatch it soon. I guess I did a little over a month ago when I was watching a bunch of SpongeBob before grad school started, and since it started, I haven't even touched a DVD. It truly is a travesty. Okay, well, as you can see, I don't really have any real closing thoughts at all, so I'm just gonna end this video right here, and I'll see you all in the next review.